That's one of those things that you have to ask people and like, hey, does this look legit? This is weird. But this is about the only form of laminate I've ever seen that is legitimate. There are posters that, any J-pop music fans in the room? How about Hamasaki fans? Ayumi Hamasaki? Yay, awesome, good. How many of y'all remember the Catgirl poster? The Hamasaki Catgirl poster? Very famous, very sexy. She's in a Catgirl outfit, kind of Marilyn Monroe style. But the most incredible thing about this poster is the dimensions of it. It's very tall and then it's very thin. Do you have any idea why they made the poster that size? It's really hard to make knockoff copies of it. Because you can't just throw it in Photoshop. You can't just throw it in Photoshop and stretch it out, or she will not look like a sexy kitty cat anymore. She will look like a hamster. And this is, when we talk about posters, this is one of the easiest ways to spot bootleg posters. Japanese game collectibles fans, like people that collect Sega and Sonic and stuff, Mario stuff, how many of you will attest to the fact that none of it is the same size? None of it is the same size. When you look at posters and you approach a vendor's table and every single poster is the exact same shape and size, whether it be J-rock, anime, or game related, you're probably looking at a bunch of bootleg posters. And the really scummy thing about the poster vendors is they've run out really good poster people. There's a Chrono Crusade poster that I'm still like clawing my eyes out trying to find. It's a double-sided poster. So like you could get a really cool frame built for it and display either side, depending on how you felt. But another vendor, who I wish I could name by name, but that's against the law, took that poster and made a cheap reproduction of the front side of it. And so the person that sells the real poster for $50 or $60 doesn't bring it out anymore because that makes him look like the scumbag. It makes him look like he's ripping you guys off. Here's another trick that works with a lot of vendors. Ask them how they can prove to you that it's legitimate. Their attitude speaks volumes about the legitimacy of their product. How do I know this is legitimate? Well, I don't sell anything. They get really super hot. Specifically, this one poster vendor is what made me think of it. Whereas a vendor that takes pride in what they sell will tell you. It'll take a second to go, oh, no, see this Sailor Moon poster, now this is really rare, and you'll only see this at blah, 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 and it's got this on it, and they'll take the time that it takes to explain to you how to get good products. With posters, you really do get what you pay for. That Chrono Crusade poster is phenomenal, and the knockoff is just a poster. I put it on the level of a crappy Miley Cyrus poster that you buy at Walmart. Like, it's just, a little cheap piece of paper. There's no weight to it. It doesn't have any weight that would hold a big poster that size on the wall. That's another thing. Giant posters are not printed on cheap, thin paper. They're not. Because the size of the poster negates that weight of paper. You have to have something stronger to hold a big poster. The other thing is sometimes, and this isn't a telltale sign, but sometimes on a crappy printing job, there is something called a Moore effect. It's what happens when you photograph a dot matrix pattern. Who has ever seen that weird, it looks like some hypnotic effect thing? It's two dot pitches, like, everybody that's seen it is like, oh yes. It's two dot pitches that are not aligned, and it creates an optical illusion. Because most things that we see in printed media are printed on a screen pattern, when they're photographed cheaply and reproduced cheaply, that's something that will show up from time to time. There are some people that have gotten better at bootlegging posters, but yeah. Does anybody have any questions about, and again on posters, what is something, I even pointed it out on the Sailor Moon stuff. First thing that you're always going to look for on everything is any kind of trademark information. How many of you have seen the new Silent Hill wall scrolls, the ones that Great Eastern are producing? They all have logos all over them. They all have Great Eastern's logo on them. They have the company, is it not Namco? Who's got Silent? Konami. It's Konami, yeah. Okay, I was like, I'm too big of a Silent Hill fan to not know that. Yes, I'm still wearing my zombie shirt too. Anyway, does anybody have any questions about posters, like specifically? They're one of the easier ones to talk about. What do y'all want to talk about next? Somebody was very excited and screamed earlier. Yes, y'all with the hand is shooting up.
CDs.
CDs, awesome, thank you. I've got some really great examples of bad CDs. CDs are probably, now I'm gonna feel like the old lady in the movie theater and make a bunch of noise with my wrapper, hang on. Okay, CDs are one of the ones that usually get skipped over in the dealer's room. CDs are the ones that people almost never know how to spot. And it's because of the nature of reproducing them that sometimes, in one case that I'm about to show you, the CD that is the bootleg CD looks better than the real CD. What are some things that you would think that you would look for on a CD to verify its legitimacy or not? Aside from what we've already talked about, copyright information, logos, yeah. Now sometimes you don't have access to it. There's a great DVD that I'm going to show you all in a minute. This is definitely bird CDs. Yeah.
I was thinking, like, with CDs, it's like originality of voice, you know, who sings it and whatnot.
Well, no, because bootleggers, what they do is they buy a real copy. It's just like the people that bootleg posters. They buy a real copy and they just make a crappy reproduction of it. So it's going to be the same voices. It's going to be Hamasaki, or it's going to be Gilgamesh. It's going to be the person you think it is. It's just a bad recording. Here's one that I only recently found, and you can laugh at me because I have to count them real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I got it right. Okay, I always go, it's either 12 or 16 and I can never remember. All authentic Japanese CDs should have, oh wait, I counted it on the wrong one. Oh no, they just copied it. Wow, that's really crappy. Should have a 12-digit code on the side of them. It's 12 characters long. If it does not have that on it, you're not looking at a Japanese CD. That is their equivalent of a barcode, and it's very visible. Now, here's something funny. This is the bootleg and non-bootleg CD side by side, and they've even reproduced the number on the side, but look, something's missing. You can even look at it from a distance and see what's missing. The copyright holder's name is at the bottom, and it's just casually left off on the bootleg copy. And here's the weirder thing. I keep having to look at these to figure out which one's real and which one isn't. The print job. A lot of people will say the print quality of a CD is inferior on a bootleg. From a distance, you can't spot the difference in these two. They're very well done. They're very well printed. Yeah, different printing on the bottom. Here's something that is always kind of a dead giveaway. The appearance of Chinese characters of any sort at the bottom of your anything is usually a bad sign. China is a country that does not enforce a lot of trademark or a lot of intellectual property laws, and therefore there are a lot of marketed items that are made in China that are sold with the intention of being illegal items. There are a few anime soundtrack companies that if you see this company's name, you know you're holding a bootleg. One of them is called Sanmei, and it's they even put their logo, they're proud enough to put their SM logo on everything. We jokingly used to call this stolen melodies because everything that Sanmei produces is a reproduction of somebody else's copyrighted material. If you look up Sanmei in Wikipedia, it will actually say that's what this company does. Another one is Mia Recordings. Mia is a little harder to see because it's a smaller logo. Where is, you gave me an Ever Anime. Yes. There's another one called Ever Anime. And the cool thing about, like, while it sounds like it's hard to remember all these names, when you get down to it, there are about 6 of them that do CDs, and you start getting really familiar with who they are. I know that Emily is building an FAQ for the Facebook thing. Here's one that blows my mind, and you would only know this if you'd ever seen the real soundtrack. Here is a Chrono Crusade soundtrack knockoff. There's something really weird missing on this CD. And I can't, is it the opening or closing? It's the opening. The opening song is not on here anywhere. The closing is, the opening's not. The Samurai 7 bootleg soundtrack is missing 4 songs. Does anybody know why you would probably chop songs, even important songs, off of a CD? The compression rate that you can get when you manufacture a professional CD is what they call a diamond cut, and most of the others are just mass duplication. So they can't fit as much on a disc, so they're like, oh, well, let's just get rid of these songs, and oh, well, what if it is the opening theme? So Another thing you'll be missing is content. A lot of the bootleg video game soundtracks are missing tons of music. Especially things like Guitar Man and stuff like that, like the music-based video games. There are tons of things missing from a lot of those discs. So if you're a collector or you're a fan, take a look at the content and see if it looks like something's missing. Yeah.
I think one of the funny things about the Ever Anime one is that they put a logo that says all the rights of the producers to be respected or something, and they spell the word producer wrong usually.
Yes, producer is spelled, thank you for reminding me of that. Producer is spelled P-R-O-D-U-E-E-R.
Producer. What does the full warning say? It just says all the rights to be respected.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Read the text, because sometimes that's its own entertainment. All rights of the producer and the owner of the work reproduced reserved. Unauthorized copying, hiring, or lending, public performance, and broadcasting of this recording prohibited. They're telling you not to reproduce, publicly broadcast their bootleg. So thank you. I forgot about the producer. Yeah, that's always misspelled. Here's a sad one. This is really hard to spot. In fact, I'm right, Colin. Colin even thought this was the legitimate soundtrack for a very long time. And it wasn't until you get inside of it that you even know that you've been ripped off. This brings up a really good point. People ask me, well, what do I do if I'm at a convention and I get ripped off? What kind of recourse do I have? And it's different depending on where you are. At the convention, who do you think you should approach, just out of curiosity? Should you get in the vendor's face? No, you go find someone on convention staff, usually the vendor's room net. And that's one of the coolest things about the AB vendor's room. The vendor's room staff are positioned at the front of the room. Like if you wanted to tell Christian anything, you could. You'd be like, hey, can I talk to you? And he'd listen. Conventions have a vested interest in not selling illegal things because they become complicit in a broken law if they don't. So that's the first step. I would not get mouthy with the convention and go, well, if not, I'll sue you or whatever. But most conventions have it in their best interest to go to the vendor and say, hey, look, did you knowledgeably sell someone a, illegally reproduced item? Sometimes they'll be kicked out. Sometimes in the case of Comic-Con not too long ago, their booth will be taped shut and they can't even come and pack it up until the dealer's room is closed, which is super embarrassing, which I thought was kind of cool. Yeah.
I went to a convention back in October, and some guy was telling me like how he was selling like bootleg stuff, and it was mostly laminated posters, but he was telling me like how he couldn't really come here to Anime Boston because the bootleg stuff is much more strict.
Anime Boston dealer's room staff is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
We tried to steal them for the convention that I helped run in Columbus, and Christian helped us one year and then had to be like, no, it's all Anime Boston. But yeah, the Anime Boston staff is really good. And you'll find that people that knowingly sell bootlegs go to places where there is no enforcement of copyright law. You know where I see the most just illicit bootlegging of anime merchandise? Comic conventions. Because they don't really care, and they don't really, it's not their thing. Anime's not their thing, comics are, and so they don't know what to look for. But you be sure that no one would be selling any bootleg Warren Ellis anything, because that's what they're familiar with. And so, I've had a lot of fun trying to bust the chaps of people at Comic Cons. I don't do a lot of Comic Cons just because I'm an anime fan, and I don't like being with anime fans. But there's a certain vendor in Phoenix, Arizona that just hates my guts, and I love it. I'm like, hey, how's it going? But yeah, it is in the convention's best interest. Now, what if you're in a situation like eBay? What do you do?
Don't buy on eBay.
Well,
yeah, don't buy on eBay.
That's my suggestion, is don't buy anything on eBay ever. But
I've learned the very hard way.
You can turn them in, and enough, it sounds so lame, but enough complaints against a company will get their seller's license revoked. They can't sell on eBay anymore. Now, it doesn't stop them from just getting another account and doing it again, but there is also legal recourse. If you have been sold illegal merchandise, you can technically escalate it legally if you want. It's not worth it usually financially, but if you really wanted to make the guy sweat, or you really wanted to prove a point, you can push it. You can call the police if you can prove that it's a copyright violation. Yeah.
Well, with the new eBay laws. At least eBay has taken the new step to ensure that the buyer doesn't like get screwed out of deal, because I got ripped off like back in October for buying like something for my computer, and it took like eBay a few weeks, but they finally got me my money back. So
and they're a giant. It's like it's like you're now messing with Lady Gaga right now. Like, she's busy. She didn't have time to listen to his song. eBay's going to be busy, and there's millions of things being sold back and forth on eBay. So it might take them a little bit of time, but you're right. eBay is being very hardcore about trying to educate people. The coolest place to find information on bootleg plush is actually an FAQ I found on eBay. I was like, I was really impressed until I realized they just copied the one from the UFO site. But still, they've got it there. They want you to know the difference. So yeah, the recourse part of it, and here's the harder one. The most you can do is ask for your money back. You can't get them in super trouble. Like, let's say Colin finds someone selling bootleg Full Metal Alchemist material. If Colin has bought anything from them, he can ask for his money back, but it's Funimation that has to pursue it legally to make it a big deal and get this person in a lot of trouble. So that's also frustrating because a lot of people don't want to mess with it, because then over the years, copyright holders haven't pushed. They didn't want to be the bad guy. ADV's classic example of that. They don't like, they were a fan-based company, and they didn't want to do anything that looked like they were bullying up on fans. But sometimes you have to be bullied, and sometimes you have to defend your stuff. Who's got any questions about soundtracks at all? I know we were breezing through some of this. Yeah. Hello. Thank you.
Ow.
I thought I heard that they often change their name. So one song they brought up won't say something, the next time it's not.
They changed their logo several times. I've got on this FAQ that I just got that a girl made it. I think it's Glitter Kitty. I may be wrong. I know so many people's online handles. I'm like, are you Glitter Kitty? But a girl made one available on the Funimation Facebook page recently, and somebody said it had several iterations of the Sanmei logo. So they do change. Neo Recordings changes their logo pretty often too. They go back and forth. Luckily, they only bounce back and forth between like 3. They just, depending on what product it is, where it fits best. That's one of the reasons why I encourage people to like get involved with a community like, Anime Fans Against Bootlegging, because people will put pictures of like, hey, does this look legit to you? And like, no, that's the rosy-cheeked Sephiroth, or this is another version of Sanmei, and that's something that's helpful because you have a community of people kind of working together, and it's a cool group of people too. I've not seen a lot of trolling or a lot